Yeah, it really is. It's business as usual. We've had a good week. Got some things we got to get cleaned up still, but that's typical for this time a week. But I feel good with where we're at. We got a real challenge going on the road against a real good opponent. Coach has done a great job there for, I guess he's been there 11 years, whether this is year 11 or year 12, but he's done a great job. They're always tough on defense. They're always going to have a few wrinkles that cause some challenges from a protection standpoint or on offense, a play action pass perspective. So our biggest probably challenge is Lewerke. I think he does a really good job with his mobility. We got to get ready. We'll finish off the rest of this week with really good preparation and go on the road and play well.
James, how do you assess the play in your secondary relative to your expectations for it going into the season?
I think it's been good. I think we played really well. I think Amani is leading the conference in interceptions. We got a bunch of guys doing great when it comes to pass breakups. Marcus has always been really physical. I think Apke's been more physical than this year than probably anticipated, and doing a great job with his fits. I think good. Can we be better? Yeah, but I think overall about what we anticipated with a veteran secondary.
James, you had mentioned a couple times yesterday that the offense is best when Trace is running. Did you see something on film looking at that you want to see more of, or is it what do you?
I just think if you look back over the last year and a half to 2 years, when Trace is factored into the running game early in the game, whether it's design runs, whether it's reads, or whether it's scrambles, I think it puts people on their heels. It's one more thing you got to deal with. It becomes frustrating as a defensive coordinator. It becomes frustrating as a player. Now they have to account for him, which I think makes Saquon more effective. All those things. So it just, that's just in general. I feel like we've had our best games when Trace has been a factor in the run game.
James, you've had John Reid traveling with you. Does he count against the travel roster number? And what is his role? Because obviously if you're spending that spot, it means he's pretty valuable.
Yeah, he's a steady force, for our defense. He's a tremendous leader. John's always been kind of a student of the game, the way he approaches it, how he is with the younger players. We alternate him as a signaler as well. So he's a guy that we feel like brings a lot of value, and we would like to travel him whenever we can, and that's pretty much been every single week. So that's part of our routine now.
James, how does playing an offense you compared Michigan State to Michigan two weeks ago for your defense from a prep standpoint? Does it help them at all, just having that fresh memory of playing similar stuff?
Yeah, I think it always helps when you've played someone that has a similar style. And we've game planned for that style already, during the season, and the different responsibilities that we're asking guys to do. All those things, the recall is important. So, I think our guys, our coaches, and our players, feel better after this being our second opponent like this. But obviously each team has got their own little wrinkles or things that they try to emphasize that can still be problematic. So, that'll be a challenge.
Are you pretty solid on what you're going to do offensive line-wise this week, or is that something that will be a work in progress throughout the week?
No, I think we're pretty set. I think we're pretty set with what we're going to do. Sometimes you're waiting for things from the training staff, or sometimes you're waiting for things, from a competition standpoint. But I think we're pretty set in what we're going to do. I think what we're probably still working on is getting reps in terms of contingency plans. If we get more injuries, where do we go from there, and those types of things.
Hey, Jay, you talk on Monday night, you and Joe get together. Do you and Brent do anything just one-on-one like that during the week? Do you connect defensively like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're referencing that I may have mentioned.
You say one time or a couple times, Monday night, Tuesday after you and Joe kind of offensive game plan.
No, Monday nights is a huge game plan night for both sides of the ball. There's some times where I'll step in. This afternoon I stepped in with Brent and Tim Banks and pulled them aside about something I felt like I think could be helpful. I'll do the same thing with Joe, but it's not really nights. Monday nights are tough because I'm a morning guy and Joe is a night guy, and I've adjusted my schedule a little bit, but offense is usually here right around 12 o'clock. Joe and the GAs are usually here till around 3. So, being a morning guy with that schedule wasn't really working. So I wasn't staying till 4 to meet with Joe one-on-one. But kind of throughout the day, I'll grab those guys, if there's something that I think, or I'll bring it up in the staff meeting if I think it's more of a overall purpose thing. But I'm pretty much bouncing back and forth with most of my time on the offensive side.
Would you say Sean Clifford's a fair match for Brian Moore if he's still so wise in some of the other quarterbacks you face, and if so, how does that help?
I think probably similar. The problem is right now, Cliff is our number 3 quarterback. So we send him down to the scout team, but not for the whole practice. He'll go down for a skelly period or something like that. Schuster's done a great job being our scout team quarterback, but we don't feel like we can afford to send our 3rd team quarterback down there, because if something happens, he's a few plays away from getting in the game. So I think he's got a really good skill set. I think guys are excited about him, coaches and players, but it's not like he's down there mimicking Lewerke for our defense, if that's what you were talking about.
Yeah, just to
Yeah, we'll set him down for a period or 2 or things like that, but most of the practice he's with the offense.
Hey, James. Leonard, you mentioned yesterday as somebody who kind of seemed to rest. What's the difference between Michael last year and the guy that you have now, just in terms of development, and how comfortable do you feel with what he could do?
I think he's always been an extremely athletic guy. That's never been kind of a question for him. His first year on campus, he had a lot of little kind of nagging injuries, which made him miss a lot of practice. So in high school, you can get away with just being a better athlete than everybody, but here the techniques and fundamentals and things like that. And then I think just the physical aspect. He's just bigger and stronger than everybody in high school. So there are things that he's been learning and growing, and I think probably in the last month we've seen a significant change and growth in him. So there's progress. I think he's still got a very, very bright future here. But I think the biggest thing is, he's been durable this year, and last year he was dealing with a bunch of little nagging injuries that kept him out and missed way too many practices.
James, you've talked before about Saquon's positive body language. Is that something that's applicable to other guys in the team? And is that something that you can coach a player, or does he just have to take it upon himself to have that positive body language?
Well, yeah, I think you coach it, but that's one of those things that it's either that's who they are or not. But you coach it. There's guys we work with that get better. There's guys that we're still working with on it, and I do think it has a positive effect on other people. I think Josh McPherson is a guy like that has a major effect on our team with positive energy and body language. I think Marcus Allen's a guy like that as well. So we got a number of guys, but I do think it has an impact on others in everything they do. Just like I think negative body language or demeanor or attitude rubs off on people as well. Unfortunately, we don't have them a lot.
James, those are freshmen who didn't play last year in games, and now they're 18. How do you kind of manage if you start to see them straining a little bit? You've seen them hit a wall at this point. I know everyone's a little bit different, but how do you manage a college player in his first year going through the rigors?
You're talking about like the guys that are actually playing for the first time?
True freshmen who are contributing or in your
Or true freshmen? Would fall in that same category?
Yeah.
I think that the redshirt freshmen are more prepared for it than the true freshmen, because the true freshmen, it's completely new. At least the redshirt freshmen have been through the grind, maybe not the intensity of actually playing. I think the true freshmen typically kind of hit a wall, and you got to fight through that. The redshirt freshmen, once again, I think depending on the position and who they are a little bit more prepared. But fortunately, we don't have too many of those guys that are having to have significant roles. They're rotating in and being able to kind of gain experience. Got a few of them. But overall, I think our guys have been good. I think, some of the things that we're doing now, in terms of Tim Bream and the training staff from a recovery and a rehab standpoint, I think have been really good. I think Dave Hamilton has helped with that. I just think some of the things we're doing from a nutrition standpoint, from a sports science standpoint, I think help. And then I typically meet with all the freshmen probably once a month just to check on them and see how they're doing. And I'm going to have a meeting this week with all first and second year players to kind of review last week's game and what they learned from it. So when they're in that position 2 years from now or 3 years from now, they've learned as much from it as they possibly can. So I think I have a meeting tomorrow with all first and second year players.
Is this something you've done before? with the first and second year players?
No, I meet with the freshmen all the time. I haven't met with the first and second year players.
How important do you think that is to, like, is it a teaching moment type thing that you want to get across?
I think it's
to them?
just it's constant development. I think, when you have programs that 100% of their focus is on just the game that you're playing that week, that's where you see dips. That's where you see a program that has a really good year every 4 years because they build on it, but then they're not developing the redshirt sophomores, the redshirt freshmen, and when their time comes, they're not ready because they're so invested in just that year. So it's constant balance with the strength staff and with myself and the assistants of you got to spend a certain percentage, and your philosophy is going to determine what percentage you spend on the developmental aspect of your guys as well. So, we had a kicking competition yesterday, was field goal. We had a kicking competition today, which was kickoff, and that was with Landis. That was with Nick, thank you, DeAngelis, and that was with Barbier. And those guys aren't competing to play this Saturday, but we're going to need one of those guys to factor in for us next year with Tyler going. So we try to do things like that throughout the year so that we have an awareness and an understanding where those guys are at, and then also they do as well. They get some really good feedback. I thought Landis did a great job today on kickoff, and I think, you look at Tyler this year, he's doing both responsibilities. I think in a perfect world, Tyler could have stayed just doing field goals and had somebody be the primary kickoff guy. So I'm hoping to be able to go back to that model in the future.
You mentioned that meeting with first and second year players to kind of learn from that and maybe not repeat it down the road. What's the lesson that you want them to learn out of that meeting?
Well, I think the biggest thing is talk to them, get some feedback from them, what they saw, guys that traveled, what they saw, what the experience was like, guys that watched it on TV, what they learned from it. I think one of the big mistakes that you can make as a head coach or someone in a leadership position is you constantly do all the talking. And I think you got to spend more time listening and kind of hearing it from their perspective. That takes some time to develop that because a lot of times when I meet with them in a group setting, they don't want to speak up in a group setting. The Leadership Council over the last couple of years, I think, has developed into that. But to be honest with you, I kind of want to hear from them what they have to say, and then once they get done talking, then I'll probably plan a few messages with them, just with the intensity and the opportunities and those types of things.